Welcome back to Cask and Point. Today is day 20 of our new era Bourbon Club Advent Calendar, where from December 1st to December 25th, we're trying 25 fun, funky, mysterious samples. We're going to give tasting notes, we're going to rate it, we're going to try to guess what we're having. At the end of the video, we'll find out exactly what we had. Now, today is already day 20, which is pretty crazy. We've done 19 of these already. Let's see if we get a pretty good guess for day 20. On the nose here, there's a mix of maple, which is really the primary sweetness on this, but then there's a lot of herbal notes. There's definitely some cloves on this, definitely a little bit of mint, definitely some seagrass on this. Overall, it smells okay. It does smell a little bit funky. Now, looking at the color here, this is very light. And so I was thinking we were going to be in the Irish or Scotch or whiskey realm just by pouring this. But I thought a lot has been in that realm. And I think we've only had one so far that actually was. So we're probably at a bourbon here. It's probably just a young bourbon. And there is some like nice caramel vanilla sweetness as well mixing with that maple. So I'm definitely leaning towards a bourbon right now, just a very young one with some grassy funkiness to this. Overall, it doesn't smell amazing, not getting real deepness in the flavors, but there's enough complexity there that there is quite a bit to pick out. Let's try it. Oh my god, that's weird. So there's a ton of sweetness right at the front. Just a ton of maple candy on that. And the herbal notes actually aren't nearly as strong on this in the palate. Wow, I have no idea what that is. That's really weird because it definitely tastes a little bit youthful, but there's so much sweetness on this. I'm thinking this is some sort of finished whiskey. There's something that happened with this whiskey, but it's also so light that it's really throwing me off because typically bourbons are darker than this, or ryes are darker than this. Oh man. We're not going to have a good guess today. This is weird. Oh, this is weird. So, yeah, there's maple. There's a little bit of honey, a little bit of caramel, a good amount of vanilla that comes out much more on the palate than on the nose, but it is definitely still there on the nose. Just so much sweetness at the front of the palate there. Let's take a second sip. My mouth just fills with sweetness. While it's still there, you take the sip, and then there's all these other factors that are coming in. That's sweet. That's a bourbon for sure. And now, what kind of bourbon is it? Because of that color, I'm leaning towards this being a 4 or 5 year bourbon. I'm leaning towards this being some sort of finished bourbon because it's having that much sweetness. But it's not giving me like a wine finish. It's not giving me like the grapes, cognac notes, stuff like that. This could be a maple finish. If this was a maple finished bourbon, that would make a lot of sense. Or a honey finished bourbon, maybe. That would make a lot of sense. A youthful bourbon that's honey finished. The proof is also pretty hard to ascertain. I'm thinking around 110. I'm thinking it's definitely above the 80-90 range. I don't think we're looking at like 130, 140. It's not that hot. And on the nose there, it's definitely under 115, I think. That palate is weird. Oh, that's really weird. Let's take a third sip here. There's a lot to pick out there. Sweetness on the front, then a bunch of herbal notes. Your cloves, your mint, your seagrass. It's good. It's not great, but it's weird. I'm going to rate this a 7.3. I like it. I think this definitely has a spot on a bar if it was $60. I think if I'm told that this is $200, I'm passing very, very quickly. I cannot think of a single whiskey that I've had that meets this flavor profile. Maybe this is like a Nulu honey finish. Maybe, I mean, I think this is a cheap whiskey and the flaws were kind of picked up by a really nice finish. And that's why I'm thinking this ends up getting into those 7s, even though I think the base whiskey in here would probably be in the 5s. I mean, the base whiskey here it's not that good, but let's find out what we're having. I have no idea. Now, I'll put it on your screen as I'm looking. We are on day 20, so let's get our good old Google Drive out. And day 20. Oh my god, it's Canadian. Oh, it's Obtainium. It's funny because Obtainium, somebody had actually given me an Obtainium pour, and it was totally blind, and I was like, you know, this tastes like 160 proof Obtainium, and it was 160 proof Obtainium. But this one's a little bit, this is a different flavor profile than what I recognize them from being. I mean, our proof is going to be crazy here, right? We're looking at 156 proof, I believe. Let's see, 78.2%, so 156.4 proof there. We're looking at 27 years old, so we have an old pick here, distilled in 1994, meaning this is like a 2021-ish bottle, yeah. And the information here, there are notes, but it just says Obtainium Canadian whiskey, distilled in 1994, bottled on August 4th, 2021, aged 27 years, bottle 197 of 255 and 156.4 proof. So this is Obtainium. Wow, that's interesting. I feel like I should have done better on that one. As it's opening up, I'm getting those flavors a little bit more. Definitely tons of sweetness, but the sweetness is relatively thin, and then you just get a bunch of herbal notes there. It's nice. It's nice. Oh, man. I feel like I should have gotten this one. I have tried a few Obtainiums, but man, I didn't know Canadian was on this as well. We were guessing Scotch, we guessed Irish in the beginning. We went with bourbon ultimately. Man, I guess a 27 proof Canadian whiskey tastes like a 4 to 6 year bourbon. That's kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, that proof there, definitely very masked. This is going to drink anywhere close to 160 proof. That's the magic of a lot of these Canadian whiskeys and American light whiskeys. Just the way we acknowledge proof with bourbon, there's so much more flavor backing each proof of bourbon, just with the way they make it, the way they distill it, and all these things. So 160 proof American light whiskey or Canadian whiskey just drinks like 110, 120 proof bourbon. And it smells nice, and there is some nice sweetness on this. Now that I know what it is, I'm definitely getting a lot more oak. I'm definitely getting a bit more caramel. Definitely a little bit more fruit on there, but it's good. There's a flash of sweetness, then it gets herbal. I like it. I don't love it. It was probably like $150, $200 bottle. I'd pass, but it's unique. It's interesting. It tells a story. That was fun. Hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. Catch you all in day 21.